Hi there, I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, and today we're going to take a look at a brand new role-playing game called G.I. Joe, the role-playing game. Now, it wasn't too long ago that I did another review on the Power Rangers RPG, and that one and this one are both made by the same company, Renegade Game Studios. Now, both these games use the Essence system, so they're pretty much going to be mechanically pretty much the same. If you're familiar with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, it's going to be easy for you to get into either G.I. Joe, the role-playing game, or Power Rangers. It has the same kind of level-up system, and there is a difficulty setup where there's a difficulty number and you have to roll over, but you get extra die depending on the kind of shift that you get. And that's where it starts to get a little bit different. You get extra dice, anything from a coin flip to a D4, a D6, a D8, a D12, and then you can even get higher than that, and that total is added to your roll. So it's very unusual in that aspect. Plus, both games heavily really kind of push you towards rolling the dice if you have to, but if your player comes up with a really good idea and a really good way to kind of explain it, man, just kind of run with that versus rolling the dice. And honestly, in most role-playing games, you should really focus more on the role-playing aspect versus strictly the dice. Sometimes, some people consider it role-playing, R-O-L-L, instead of R-O-L-E. And it's R-O-L-E playing, role-playing. You can roll too many dice in a role-playing game, but of course it all depends on your personal play style and your group's preferences. But let's take a look at G.I. Joe, the role-playing game, and get right in here and see what's inside. Okay, first of all, just looking at the book, I'm definitely not disappointed in the art. And all this is going to be original art that we're going to find in here, which is kind of cool because then it's not rehashed from the 80s when the toys were out. And I like that too. It all looks very, very good. It's very well organized, just like the Power Rangers RPG. A nice little treat is right in the beginning of the book. We're treated to this really nice splash cover, this centerfold, where you got all the Joes and a lot of the COBRA villains there. Really nice. I like it a lot. When you get into it, initially it just goes right into General Hawk's debriefing, telling you about COBRA and highlighting some of the main characters, and you're going to see a lot of familiar faces. And if you were big into G.I. Joes back in the day, you're going to be recognizing a lot of these characters, and they definitely did not waste any spacing here. You get your money's worth with all the Joes and all the Cobras, that's for sure. There are several pages that talk about all the different Joes, and that's really nice. Unfortunately, they don't give too much more information than some of this stuff, which is kind of unfortunate because it would have been kind of cool to see maybe some more stats on a lot of these guys, but there are so many Joes out there and so many well-known ones, it would be very difficult, I think, to stat everybody out and have them in this book. But I do kind of wish that they'd done just a little bit more in that department. But it's cool that they're there and gives you a little blurb about them. And then, of course, jumps into actually making G.I. Joe right there. Your different steps, your essences, which is basically your 4 attributes, your health, your skills, your influences. You're selecting a role, which is basically, what class you're going to be. Talks about leveling up. And again, another nice page with some gorgeous artwork. Scarlet attacking with a hand crossbows. Talks about tiers of play, which you'll see very similar like in Dungeons & Dragons. Tier levels 1 to 4, Tier 2 levels 5 to 10, 11 to 16 is Tier 3, and finally Tier 4 is level 17 to 20. Jump into influences, gives you examples of different influences and how some of the Joes have been influenced. And then of course it goes into deeper under each of these influences, talks about the background bonds, suggested characteristics, hang-ups, just all sorts of different stuff. Then it jumps into your origins, and this is basically kind of like your, I guess probably the origins is more like your background. Were you in the Army, were you in the Navy, non-military, were you a scientist? And these again just add to help flesh out your character. Next up is your role, and there are 7 different roles which are essentially your character classes. And let's take a look at, let's say, the Commando. And as you can see, there are a lot of similarities to 5th edition once again. At each level, you get something different. And as we continue, it tells you a little more about the commando in general, their training, equipment training qualifications, their expertise, and kind of special things that you have to be aware of for that particular class. And of course, as we get over here, you get your perks beyond first level, and it tells you everything else that you gain as you level up. And then you can kind of more specialize within each, like you can be the infiltrator, sniper, a spy. And we see a lot of similarities in Dungeons and Dragons as well. And then of course it repeats for each of the different classes. And as we move on, it talks about essence scores and skills and everything you need to know about that, as well as using skills, setting up difficulty numbers for those skills, how to resolve all those tests. And of course, we get to the general perks, which is pretty much like your feats, and there are a lot of them. And I tell you, if you wanted to make an agent of COBRA, basically you just follow the whole Joe creation table and turn them into a COBRA. It'd be as simple as that, at least for me anyways. And there's a pretty healthy section about equipment, and even talks to you about upgrading your equipment from anything from standard all the way up to theoretical and unique. And I think that's kind of interesting. I like that. So there's definitely some possibilities, and there are pretty decent selection of equipment, that's for sure. And another thing you can get is a pet, which is pretty cool because in Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of folks want a familiar. So in G.I. Joe, you can get yourself a pet to accompany you and help you within a limited capacity in the game, which is pretty cool. You can even get, if you're more techie, you can even get a drone, which I think is actually kind of neat, drone pets, or at least a kind of a drone robotic follower helper, which is pretty cool. It has a pretty good section on vehicles. Now it's neat because it covers all the Joe vehicles, and of course, wait, we're getting to COBRA. I do like that they've got the illustrations of each of the vehicles and the equipment, and I tell you, they look just like the toys from when I was growing up, and it's super cool. A lot of nostalgia right there. I kind of wish, though, we had some more full color images of the vehicles, like maybe every other one or every third one, just to kind of help draw you into the game, like a cool action scene with it. But I'm still pretty happy with this. And here they discuss, there's a whole section on combat, which they get pretty in depth about. And as we move on further, they even talk about vehicle combat. Now, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is a really cool illustration. I know it's just a review, and what does it matter about the illustrations? But I don't know. Sometimes the illustrations in a book help me pull myself into the world and helps pull the players in the world. We can open it up and go, oh, look at this, especially if they're not familiar with G.I. Joe. And so you can see these ravens and the little extra craft that pops off. I think this is really cool. And you can see this guy, this Captain Brad Ace. He's sitting here flying. It's got to be a Sky Striker shadowing these guys. It's just pretty cool. And I like the illustrations. And I got to tell, it really helps bring me into the world. Now, of course, it discusses exploration and, oh, here we go, locations. COBRA, I'm sorry, this is the pit. This is actually the Joe headquarters, and they talk about that, the USS Flag. I wish, man, because they have the USS Flag, I really wish they had a cool layout of the USS Flag or the Joe base. I think that would have been cool, even if it was just very rudimentary. And they talk about the flag, they talk about the pit, but I really wish there was a little more there for that, just to kind of help bring us into the world a little more. But it does discuss other areas that you could go into, and they do a pretty good job just because they're really trying to put a lot of information in one book and still keep it around $50 for you. And of course, it talks about COBRA Island, and I think this is cool because I like this nice shot of COBRA Island here, and it gives you some background about COBRA Island, just a little bit, and it's pretty fascinating actually. And it, of course, tells you as a DM kind of how to work on that, and of course, it talks about COBRA High Command. Look at this great image of COBRA Commander right here, and I like it. They show him with the hood and with the helmet, so pretty sweet. I like it. I dig it. The Baroness, Destro, Major Blood's in here somewhere. There's Dr. Mindbender. Oh, as we keep going, it talks about more of the different COBRA villains. Oh, there's Major Blood right there. Zartan, look at the Viper, COBRA Officer, Techno Viper. This is some pretty cool stuff. Crimson Guard. There's the Bat Troopers even in here, but you don't get a full image of it. Ah, man, I wish they would have had the image of the Bat Trooper in there, because that was pretty impressive right there. The Twins again. The Dreadnoks, which is like a biker gang that kind of got pulled into Cobra. Some pretty neat stuff. Ooh, there's Zartan. Heck yeah. And then as we go, they do talk about all the Cobra equipment. However, it's almost like some of this, the last few illustrations, I don't know why I'm so hung up on illustrations. It's just because I think I love the property so much. Like the His Tank is kind of cool right here. The Rattler's kind of cool, but I don't think they do them justice. And there's a lot of cool pieces of equipment back here for Cobra that they just really didn't illustrate. And again, I'm just a sucker for the illustrations, especially if you haven't played. But overall, the illustrations that you have are pretty good. I mean, look at how Snake Eyes turned out great. There is a lot of neat stuff here. And of course, you get an adventure right here in the back that you can run your characters through to kind of get them used to the world. But overall, and of course, you got a nice index and you got a spot for taking notes. Although, unfortunately, I'm not sure if game designers realize that most people don't usually use the back for notes. I haven't met too many other game masters who use these back few pages to make quick notes. Maybe there's somebody out there, maybe I'm wrong, but especially on this glossy paper, pencil's not too great, and pen I don't think is going to be real good either. It's going to kind of smear a little bit before it dries. Just not a big fan. Of course, we do have character sheet in the back, which is really cool, as always, because you're going to need that. And it's in the back where it should be, honestly. And here we've got another cool illustration of the cover. And overall, $54.99. Pretty sweet book. Okay, so that's my quick review of G.I. Joe, the role-playing game. And I know it's kind of quick, kind of rudimentary, but it's really similar to Power Rangers role-playing game, which you should probably check right here. I'm going to have a link for it so you can check it out. And again, I think it is super cool. And if you like G.I. Joe, I definitely think you should give it a shot. Again, if you're familiar with 5th edition, you're definitely going to probably like playing this game, I think, because it's going to be easy to get into it. A lot of the ideas in this are similar to 5th edition, so it's going to be a lot easier for you to pick it up and get going. Downside, not really too much of a downside. Most of it's a personal preference thing for me. It's the fact that I wanted some more vehicle illustrations, and they wasted a couple pages in the back with just the line pages for note-taking, but I don't know anybody nowadays who actually does that, who actually takes notes in the back of their books. You know, that might have been something, you know, back in the 80s, because you see that all the time. But as time goes on, most people don't make notes in their book. I mean, they might tab the pages or put bookmarks in them, but they wasted some space in the back. And there was easily, matter of fact, I'm going to open it up right now and take a look. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 pages. There's 5 pages back here. And each page, you could have put a small little map, even if you had to turn the book sideways, of the pit, Cobra Island, and maybe a couple other vehicles, maybe like a size comparison chart or something, or the vehicles. That would have been cool. Or even just, again, smaller illustrations of some of the main vehicles and some of that other cool Joe stuff. I just think it was kind of a missed opportunity there. But, you know, considering you're getting a G.I. Joe role-playing game book, I can't count that too much as a negative, honestly. That's just more of a personal preference. But all in all, I think it's pretty cool. I'm glad it's out. There's a Transformers one coming pretty soon, so I'm very interested to see that as well. So I'm not sure when it's coming, but probably won't be too long. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed my quick look at G.I. Joe, the role-playing game. I think you're going to like it if you're a Joe fan. And if you're not, you might get into it too. Just like I had to get a copy of the Power Rangers RPG because, well, I kind of got excited about it. And I'm not even a fan, but I think I kind of am now. But again, get your copy of G.I. Joe, the role-playing game. Run down to your local FLGS and at very least, flip through it and see what you think. Well, thank you again for watching. I'm Dave Hunt, owner of that game store. Yeah, GameMasters Guild. Telling you to stay safe, play great games, and I'll see you real soon. Yo, Joe!